Yo, what's good everyone? It's Zigzag here. Welcome back to another Geoguessr video. In today's video, I'm going to bring you my first tips video in quite a long time. It's going to be one tip for every country in North and South America and all their territories. We're going to start off down in Argentina, move our way up to Canada, and you will know much more about guessing in the Americas by the end of the video. Okay, country number one, we're in Argentina, which is a country that's very difficult for newer players, and this is something I wish I knew a lot earlier. So this is the La Pampa province, and something special about the La Pampa province is that the roads are almost always directly north-south or east-west. So that means if we look at the compass in the bottom right and make the red arrow point perfectly north, looking down at the ground, we'll see that this road is going perfectly east-west. The only other place where you see these perfectly north-south, east-west roads is in Chaco province. As you can see here, this one is perfectly north-south, and these two provinces are actually quite far away from one another. Chaco is up north and is much more tropical, and La Pampa is down here in the middle of the country. And here's the demonstration with the lines. You can see La Pampa has a lot of these north-south roads, and that is also the case if we zoom into southern Chaco here, where they've covered the country very densely. And yeah, look at the rest of the country in your own time. You'll see that there are hardly any other perfect north-south roads with any consistency. Tip number two, and we are of course over in Chile, and here we are near one of the major cities in Chile. This is Concepcion, and around Concepcion you get a lot of these eucalyptus tree plantations. Now eucalyptus is native to Australia but grown around the world, and you'll be able to recognize it by the white trunks with the very pale green leaves. They're also going to be very tall a lot of the time and grown very close together because they're being harvested for timber. So where should you click if you see this? Well, quite simply, you look at Santiago, go south, here is the city of Concepcion, and around Concepcion on the hilly west coast is normally where you should click when you see these plantations in Chile. Just note that they're also quite common in southern Brazil, so make sure you check the soil color as well. Okay, next country is Uruguay. This one is probably even easier than the last two tips. We have the orange lid dumpsters here, which are unique to the Rocha department in eastern Uruguay. So here you can see Rocha, and this dotted line here indicates where you're going to see this bin. So it's right on the east coast near Brazil. It is a small place, but it will come up sometimes, and you can always nail a great guess when you see it. Okay, next up we're talking about Brazil, and one of the highest yield crops in all of Brazil to learn is sugarcane. Now, luckily for us, there are only two zones in Brazil where sugarcane is commonly grown. If you see a huge field like this, you're very likely to be in one of those two zones. Number one is the state of Sao Paulo right here, and it kind of spreads up into southern Minas Gerais and also Goiás. But that is the main zone, and the secondary zone is up here in the states of Sergipe and Alagoas. The best way to tell them apart is that the southern Brazilian stuff will have much redder soil, whereas when you're up north, there'll be a lot of white soil. It's a bit more sandy, and it's also quite a bit more hilly. So if you're unsure, check the dirt and check the terrain, and that should give you the answer. And by the way, if you're having trouble distinguishing sugarcane from normal grass, it should be really long, but also kind of evenly long in a way that you wouldn't really see just on the random side of the road. So it can be hard to distinguish, but this is typically what it looks like. Alright, I've got a double whammy of a tip here in Bolivia. We have this cobblestone, which kind of repeats itself. You can see that there are these straight lines of rocks that run through the cobblestone, and then kind of a random pattern in between. This kind of cobble is unique to Bolivia, though there are many other countries in South America that will occasionally use a cobblestone road. And then here we are in the city of Cochabamba, one of the biggest cities in Bolivia, and it shows up very often on Geoguessr. And in Cochabamba, you'll almost always be able to see a big mountain north. Now, to a newer player, this might not seem so useful, but there are just no other cities in Bolivia with a perfect east to west ridge to the north like this. So especially if you feel like you're in a big city, which it definitely feels like we are here with so many houses in the background, you should just click Cochabamba, which is right here in the center of the country, turning on terrain mode here, and you can just see how prominent that ridge is that's going to be north of you when you're in Cochabamba. Okay, next up we are in Peru, and Peru is not a country that you would probably associate with olive trees. Indeed, olive trees mostly are grown in Spain, Italy, and Greece. However, there is a large number of olive bushes right on the Chilean border in southern Peru. If you see such a large field of them like this, you should just click all the way down on the border and get your free points. Okay, next up, guys, we're completely switching the vibe, no longer in the desert, but instead we're right on the equator, on the tropics in Ecuador. And you can see here we got a bunch of banana plants. We can't actually see any bananas right now, but they have these huge leaves, and they'll often have these plastic bags, which I think are protecting the fruit. Anyway, in general, Ecuador is a huge producer of bananas, but in Ecuador, you're going to particularly see these bananas north of the city of Guayaquil, over here in this western region of the country. It's going to be a little hilly, but for the most part, pretty flat, which is also a good way to distinguish it from a lot of the banana crops you'd see up in Colombia or down in Peru. Okay, next up we are in Colombia, and many of you guys probably know about the Colombian cross on the back of the sign. It's where they paint the entire sign white and put a cross at the back. That is only found in Colombia, by far the best tip on this round. But a more advanced tip here is these fences. They're also often painted white, but particularly will have a color on the top. I would say red is the most common. Blue also shows up quite a bit. Now you can see these in Brazil, in Panama, or in Mexico. I would say that's the other three countries where I would see these, but they are by far the most common in Colombia and can be a really good way to get Colombia in a pinch. They just stand out very easily. I imagine if you're playing around in 6 months, you could probably remember this having not seen it in between at all because it just looks so distinct. But yeah, normally we'll be in Colombia. Next country, and we've entered North America now, we are in Panama, and Panama can be difficult to get the region. I don't want to talk too much about the Google car, but obviously you're always going to have a huge blur in Panama. But for a really good region guess, you can use these volcanic and big rocks on the side of the road. You can see here, even in the distance, we have tons of volcanic rock walls here, and that landscape is specifically going to be in the west of the country, over here in this pale section near the Costa Rican border. Now, the best way to remember this by far is the fact that we have a city just south of it called Volcan, which of course in Spanish means volcano. So that's how you can remember the volcanic rock is in the west. You just look for this town, click on the light patch just north of it, and get yourself some free points. Alright, next up we're in Guatemala. Obviously Guatemala is solved by the Google car, but here is a specific road that is really easy to get. If you notice that you're going perfectly north-south on a really long stretch of road that's also quite flat, then you are very likely to be on this stretch of road just north of the label of the country right here. You can see how very straight this road is in comparison to the whole rest of the country, and if we turn on the blue lines, you can see there are not many roads covered up in the north of Guatemala. Now, if you want to confirm that you're on this road specifically, you can turn back to the back right roof rack and see a little bit of blue material which has been attached to the roof rack here. It is found elsewhere in the country too, but not too commonly. So if you notice this combination of direct north-south plus the little blue tassel, then you should guess here and get your free 5k. Okay, next up is the Dominican Republic, a country with very limited coverage that's also solved by the car meta. But let's talk about the Dominican Republic license plates because it can be confused with Puerto Rico. They look very similar a lot of the time, but Dominican Republic number plates will often, not always, but often have this yellow strip at the top. Sometimes it can be blue as well. But if you see the yellow one, I can't even think of a single number plate around the world that looks anything like this. So it's very useful indeed. You can just slam in Dominican Republic when you see that. But also, if you see this little blue sticker on the front of the car, that should also just be the capital city Santo Domingo. So that's 2 good tips for getting DR. Okay, so we mentioned the Dominican Republic license plates, but what about Puerto Rico itself? Well, just like Dominican Republic, it won't have front license plates for the most part. But if we look over here at one of the normal vehicles, they'll often have this Puerto Rico license plate, which has a bit of a brown box in the bottom left. This can be hard to see through the blur, but it's quite a unique one if you notice it. So yeah, the brown box has helped me get Puerto Rico over Dominican Republic, especially in NMPZ a lot of times. Remember that. Alright, US Virgin Islands is next, and you can use the Google card to distinguish the US Virgin Islands, but you can just as easily use the landscape. The Northern Islands are very hilly, very rich looking, and you're often by the coast, so I feel like they have a super distinctive vibe with these white houses on these extremely green hills. That's these ones here, just next to the British Virgin Islands. You can see how hilly they are. Then if we look down south at Sunny Isle, the main island here, we can see that there's a lot more flatness and a lot more population in the flat area. So yes, you can see a similar landscape, but it's normally going to be quite distinct from the Northern Islands. Okay, next up we're in the Netherlands, more specifically Curaçao. And yeah, Curaçao is very easy to tell the north and the south of the island apart, in my opinion. The north of the island is going to be sparsely populated like this, not many houses around. It's going to be hillier, much hillier than the south. And also, just on the whole island, you're going to see these left, right, left pole tops, which are also common in southern Africa. And once again, here's the terrain map. You can see a lot more hills in the north of the island compared to the south. And just in general, Willemstad is a huge town, whereas in the north, you don't really have too much going on. Okay, next up we have Mexico, a huge country, and one of the best rules of thumb for Mexico is that if you see a lot of red brick buildings, I'm talking the majority of around having red brick buildings. Here we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can see basically most of the buildings are red bricks here, and that is going to lean you west of Mexico City in the central part of the country. So I'm particularly talking about the states of Jalisco, Guanajuato, Michoacan. These are the ones where you're going to see a lot of red brick architecture. As you get towards Mexico City, it's going to be more mixed and there's going to be more white brick. The east of the country is going to have much more white brick, and the houses in the north of the country are going to look a lot more American. So just remember these red brick ones and that you should click closer towards Guadalajara. Okay, it's hard to pick just one meta for the United States, but I think I got one that a lot of people don't know and that's simultaneously very strong and easy to remember. So this is actually the Iowa bollard. It has a circular reflector like this and underneath a white strip. And what I find particularly easy to remember about this one is that it looks like an eye. We got the line and the dot, and the fact that this is only found in Iowa, which starts with an I, what more could you really ask for? Thank you, Iowan state government. Alright, as you can expect, we're up to Canada now. I've got 2 tips for this one. If you see this checkerboard sign, then you are going to be in Canada. This one never appears in the US. And this is the main thing I wanted to talk about, the township road. So township roads appear in Alberta and Saskatchewan. And township roads start at number 0 on the US border and then increase all the way up as they go north. So here we are at Township Road 120. If I press escape, we can see that here. And that is about 120 miles right here above the US border. So if I zoom in closer to the US border, go over here and pick a random road, zooming in, we can see that that's Township Road 34. And that's going to be about 34 miles above the US border. So therefore, if we zoom in all the way up here, we can see that we have Township Road 562. Now you can see why this is such an advantageous thing to know, because you know if you see number 500, you're not going to be clicking anywhere near the US border. Now these roads don't show up on the map in Saskatchewan. However, if you see 562 on a township road in Saskatchewan, you can line it up with the Alberta side to work out what latitude it should be at in Saskatchewan. Easy tips to remember those township roads. Okay, next up we have Bermuda, a place that people know by the Google car, but on NMPZ people often struggle with. And here I have 2 really great vegetation metas, which are common there. Number 1, we have these fan palms absolutely everywhere. They often grow very low to the ground, but as you can see, we have some similar ones that are really tall in the background. But these ones, for some reason, just appear everywhere in Bermuda, and they're honestly just common in the Caribbean in general, but particularly so up there in Bermuda. And then also these piney, needly trees are really common in Bermuda as well. It's a very unique place with strange vegetation. Go have an explore yourself and you'll soon pick up the vibe. Okay, you thought we were done, but I realized I missed a few places. Costa Rica is a country that's getting coverage at the moment, but in 2016 they did do a tiny bit. And one thing that's going to carry over into the new coverage is that Costa Rica has these blue license plates. If they're unblurred, they will say Costa Rica at the top. In general, you will see this blue text through the blur, which can be very useful. Now we're in the French territory of Saint-Pierre et Miquelon, and we can see that here they have a lot of European style license plates, despite the fact that we're in North America. So beyond the buildings looking quite North American, we're going to see much longer license plates than you get basically anywhere else in the whole America's continent, as well as the place having a lot of red tinted roads, which is also fairly uncommon in Canada, which is the main place you would confuse it for, given that there's French everywhere. And if you don't know where Saint-Pierre is, it's just south of Newfoundland here, and it's these 2 islands. And finally, we have Greenland. And yeah, guys, I really tried to avoid car meta in this video. Hopefully you guys like that. But here is a really useful car meta. This is the red car that you find in the city of Qaqortoq. So that is all the way in the south of the country right here, right near the southern tip. It's one of the bigger ones and it shows up fairly regularly. That's why I thought you guys should know it. So there you go, guys. That is one tip for every single country and territory in North America. If I missed anything, I'm deeply sorry. Sometimes that happens. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Regardless, let me know which continent you'd like to see next, and I'll see you guys in a video very soon. Till next time, and goodbye.